There is a moment that happens to every person almost every single day, and how you handle that moment quietly determines the entire trajectory of your life. It's not a big moment. Nobody's watching. There's no applause for getting it right, and often no visible consequence for getting it wrong. The moment is this. Someone says something, a criticism, a provocation, a piece of gossip, a challenge, and for about 2 seconds, you have a choice. Speak or stay silent. Most people speak. They defend, they explain, they correct, they retaliate, they perform. And most people, without ever realizing it, are spending their entire lives leaking power out of that one small crack. The people who build real influence, the quiet operators, the ones who seem untouchable, the ones who walk into a room and somehow control its temperature without raising their voice, they figured something out that almost nobody teaches you. Silence isn't the absence of power. Silence is where power is stored. 2,000 years before modern psychology had a name for it, the Stoics were already practicing it with terrifying precision. Today, we're going to break down exactly why staying silent is not weakness, not passivity, not fear. It is one of the most sophisticated tools for control, clarity, and quiet dominance that has ever existed. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly when to use it, and why almost everyone around you is doing the opposite. Let's begin. Part 1. The cost of every word you didn't need to say. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most of what people say in conflict, in negotiation, in social situations is not information. It's leakage. It's anxiety escaping through the mouth because silence feels unbearable. Think about the last time you felt insulted or challenged. What was the urge? Almost certainly, it was to respond immediately, to defend your position, to prove them wrong, to say something clever, to make sure they knew you weren't affected. That urge feels like strength in the moment. It is almost always the opposite. Seneca, writing nearly 2,000 years ago, warned specifically about this. He observed that anger and the need to respond instantly were signs of an untrained mind, a mind still being pulled around by whatever stimulus hit it last. He described the wise man as someone who could absorb an insult the way a large, solid object absorbs a blow. It registers the impact, but nothing shifts underneath. Every unnecessary word you speak in a charged moment is a small transaction. You are trading information about your internal state, your insecurity, your anger, your need for approval, for absolutely nothing in return. And the people paying closest attention to you, in business, in relationships, in any competitive environment, are collecting that information whether you realize you're giving it away or not. Part 2. Why silence feels so uncomfortable. If silence is so powerful, why does almost nobody practice it? Because silence is deeply uncomfortable, and understanding why is the first step to using it deliberately. Modern psychology gives us language the Stoics didn't have, but they were describing the same mechanism. When we're challenged, criticized, or provoked, our nervous system interprets it as a threat, not necessarily to our physical safety, but to our social standing, our identity, our sense of control. And the instinctive response to a threat is action. Fight back, explain, defend, prove, anything except sit still, because sitting still, to a threatened nervous system, feels like losing. This is precisely why the untrained response to almost any provocation is instant speech. It's not a strategic choice. It's a biological reflex dressed up as a decision, and the people around you, especially anyone skilled at reading others, can immediately tell the difference between someone speaking from calculated intention and someone speaking from reflexive discomfort. Epictetus taught his students a simple but brutal exercise. When you feel the urge to speak in anger or in defense, treat that urge itself as information, not as a command. The urge is telling you that something landed. It is not telling you that you need to respond right now, or at all. Part 3. The 3 types of silence that build power. Not all silence is the same, and understanding the difference is what separates people who use silence deliberately from people who are simply avoiding conflict out of fear. There are three distinct types worth understanding. The first is the silence of restraint. This is the pause between being provoked and choosing how to respond. It's not about staying silent forever. It's about refusing to let the first, most emotional version of your reaction be the one that gets spoken. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly, reminding himself in his private writings that he had the power to decide his response, even when he didn't have the power to decide what happened to him. The second is the silence of withholding. This is choosing not to explain yourself to people who haven't earned an explanation, not to justify decisions that are yours to make, not to defend your choices to an audience that was never going to be satisfied anyway. This type of silence protects your energy from being drained by people who have no real stake in your outcomes. The third, and the most advanced, is the silence of observation. This is deliberately staying quiet in a room, not because you're avoiding participation, but because you're gathering information. While everyone else is talking, performing, and revealing their positions, you remain still and absorb everything. This is the silence used by skilled negotiators, by careful leaders, by anyone who understands that the person who speaks the least in a room often walks away knowing the most. Part 4. Why successful people specifically use this. There's a reason this pattern shows up so consistently among people who reach high levels of success, influence, or authority. It's not a coincidence. It's a direct consequence of how information and power actually function in any competitive environment. When you speak less, several things happen simultaneously. First, the words you do say carry more weight, simply because they're rarer. A person who talks constantly has their words treated as background noise. A person who speaks rarely, and only with intention, has their words treated as signal. People lean in, because they've learned that when this person speaks, it matters. Second, silence creates a kind of protective ambiguity. When you don't explain every decision, don't defend every choice, don't reveal every reaction, people around you have less material to use against you. You become harder to predict, harder to manipulate, and harder to provoke, simply because you've stopped handing out the information they'd need to do any of those things. Third, and this is the part almost nobody talks about, silence buys you time to actually think. Every rushed response is, by definition, a response formed under pressure, with incomplete information, driven by whatever emotional state you happen to be in at that exact second. Every response that comes after a pause has had the benefit of your full rational capacity catching up to the situation. Successful people, whether they've studied Stoicism formally or not, tend to arrive at this same conclusion through pure trial and error. The quality of your decisions improves dramatically the moment you stop making them in the heat of the provocation. Part 5. The difference between silence and avoidance. It's critical to draw a hard line here, because this is where most people misunderstand the entire concept and either overcorrect into passivity or dismiss the idea entirely as just not speaking up for yourself. Silence, in the Stoic sense, is not the same as avoidance. Avoidance is silence driven by fear, fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being disliked. It's still a reaction to the same nervous system threat response we talked about earlier. It's just the opposite reflex. Instead of fighting, you're fleeing, and fleeing through silence is not strength. It's simply a different flavor of being controlled by the moment, instead of controlling it. The silence we're describing here is chosen, not forced. It's available to someone who absolutely could speak, who has something to say, who is more than capable of defending themselves, but who deliberately decides that this particular moment does not require their voice. That distinction matters enormously, because it's the difference between a person who is silent because they're powerless and a person who is silent because they understand exactly how much power that silence protects. A useful test: if you're staying silent and you feel smaller because of it, smaller, resentful, like you're swallowing something that needed to be said, that's avoidance, and it will cost you later. If you're staying silent and you feel steady, unbothered, even quietly amused at the noise happening around you, that's the disciplined silence the Stoics were describing, and it will pay you back later. Part 6. How to practice this without becoming cold or distant. There's a legitimate concern worth addressing directly. Does practicing strategic silence turn you into a cold, guarded, emotionally unavailable person? The answer, if you do this correctly, is no. And understanding why requires separating two things that often get confused: emotional openness with people who've earned your trust, and reactive speech with people, situations, or provocations that haven't provocations. The Stoics were not advocating for permanent emotional withdrawal. Marcus Aurelius maintained deep relationships throughout his life. Seneca wrote warm, detailed letters to close friends. Epictetus built an entire teaching practice built on direct, honest conversation with his students. None of them were cold. What they practiced was selective silence, reserving their full emotional and verbal expression for contexts and people that deserved it, while refusing to hand that same access to every provocateur, critic, or stranger who demanded a reaction. Here's the practical version of this you can start using immediately. The next time you feel the urge to respond to something, a comment, a criticism, a provocation, a piece of unsolicited feedback, ask yourself one question before you speak. Will responding right now serve me, or is this just discomfort trying to escape through my mouth? If it's the second one, let the silence sit. Not forever, just long enough for the reflex to pass, so that whatever you eventually say, or don't say, comes from choice instead of impulse. Part 7. The long-term payoff. Practiced consistently, this becomes less of a technique and more of an identity. People around you start to notice, even if they can't articulate exactly what's different about you. You become the person in the room who doesn't get rattled. The one whose reactions can't be predicted or farmed for entertainment by people looking for a rise out of someone. The one whose words, when they do come, actually land, because everyone around you has learned, through repeated experience, that you don't waste them. This is not about becoming unreadable or manipulative. It's about refusing to let every provocation, every criticism, every attempt to pull a reaction out of you succeed. Every time you choose silence deliberately, instead of reflexively, you are proving to yourself, in a small but real way, that your internal state belongs to you and not to whoever is currently trying to disturb it. That is, ultimately, the entire foundation the Stoics built their philosophy on, not the absence of emotion, not coldness, just the radical, quiet discipline of deciding, moment by moment, what deserves your voice and what simply doesn't. The next time someone says something designed to provoke you, a jab at work, a cruel comment online, a piece of gossip clearly meant to reach your ears, pause before you speak. Ask yourself if responding actually serves you, or if it's just the discomfort of the moment trying to talk its way out of your mouth. Silence isn't losing. Silence isn't weakness. Silence, used deliberately, is one of the oldest and most effective tools for staying in control of your own mind that has ever existed. And the people who seem the most unshakable in your life have almost certainly been practicing it, quietly, for years. If this video gave you something worth thinking about, subscribe to Mind and Method, because next week we're breaking down the exact daily practice Marcus Aurelius used to train this kind of discipline, even while ruling an empire that never stopped demanding his voice. Until then, say less and mean more.